Hey guys, how are you?
Great. How are you?
Great. Yeah, how are you?
Doing well, doing well. Thank you so much for taking the time. I love the show. The show is just so fun, so charming, and there's just so much to really dig into these characters because it's a very different scenario for the Bat family. Kind of moving from the moody and brooding to the fun side of things. And your characters, both Damien and Claire, are kind of the heart of this series for me. I just adore seeing them kind of go through this brother sister evolution and everything, and how they kind of navigate that. What was the most fun part for you guys exploring that? And did it feel like a real kind of brother sister vibe at times?
I mean, I think so. It was so fun to play Claire, and to kind of go off of like Damien as well. We didn't record at the same time, so we kind of had to go off of it separately, but I did hear like snippets, and obviously I watched the movies, so I had a good reference to go off of. And as a sibling, I'm the youngest of five, so I kind of already have that dynamic consistently just with me all the time. So it wasn't too hard to play that into this character. And again, Jonas just brings it to life, so easy.
Thank you. Yeah, very similar. I have an older sister too, and kind of just putting myself into those younger brother shoes, which I already am, right? Just kind of annoying my older sister and just playing pranks on her. It really just, yeah, kind of tapping into that wasn't too hard as well.
Well, and two, the way the show explores not even just family, but also kind of trying to find a new place in life, right? Because you're dealing with villains who are reformed, or in Pap Pap's case, kind of sort of semi-reformed. But like Volcana's very much like trying to lead a different life and almost trying to prove herself to the family. Was the character pretty much the final version we see when you signed on? Or were there any kind of bigger changes as the production went on?
For Claire personally, she was pretty final when I met her. And I did do some research of her past story, but I think the show, and there's like a specific episode that kind of goes deeper into her origin story. Um, but that kind of helped me understand her more, especially now just playing the 12-year-old version of her. There's just so much depth. Like she just has so much context with her. And again, now she's the reformed superhero. So I feel like that's a really cool thing to tap in, and to know where she came from to where she is now, and also learning how to trust these people as well as herself. Because her memory is kind of hazy from her adult life. So it's really interesting to see how she navigates her 12-year-old self and like kind of a do-over, I guess.
And in both both Damien and Claire's case, these do not like these are the like that she does not feel like a 12-year-old when she when she's talking. And Damien doesn't feel his age either, right? These he's jumping into Batmobiles and zooming around the city like a pro. And Claire's like, essentially like tracking down a supervillain group at one point and without like just pretty much offhand, and it's like, man, I can barely like walk from here to the downstairs without hurting myself. It's that kind of thing. It's impressive. um for because the show, I feel like, does a great job of kind of embodying these characters but letting them do some new things. And we're seeing on the DC like movie and live action side that they're also kind of willing to embrace that kind of thing, especially like with Superman and that kind of lighter fare, but you're also dealing with deeper issues. Would you want to play these characters in live action, and do you think they would easily make the jump?
I
That's a
definitely
great
think
question.
that'd be really cool, I think. It would be strange though, because like, you're used to just doing it with your voice, but then, kind of all the stunts and stuff. That would be really cool.
I feel like you'd be a perfect little Batman live action, 100%. I feel like maybe I could play a 12-year-old. I don't know. I'm a grown adult now, but maybe we could make it work, honestly. I'd be down. And I think it'd be fun. I could transform into the Volcana adult version, then also the child version. Let's make it
Right.
happen.
Right. Yeah. Like, and they, I feel like one of the things they can do with these characters is adapt them, right? This is
Right.
comics after all. So someone can get, uh, aged quickly, so we
Right.
can
And it
get
makes sense. Yeah.
de-aged quickly.
Yeah,
You know, if we can
exactly.
de-age Harrison Ford, we can age someone up some things. It's fine. Um,
Agreed.
and for you guys, what can you tease about? Obviously, I know you know, we won't get into spoilers and everything, but as the series continues over the course of the 10 episodes, what can you kind of tease about these two characters, but also your characters' kind of relationship with the rest of the family and how things come together or don't?
Would you like to take that one, Eunice?
Sure. I think definitely just getting to see Claire and Damien's dynamic, um, fighting crime together and that older sister duo. I'm not sure what I can and can't say, but
I know, right? There's again a lot of trials and tribulations of growing up. And like for Claire specifically, I think this entire series is really about her learning how to trust everyone around her because the only thing she really remembers in her past life is like to not trust anybody. And I think with Damien there and Bruce, they do such a good job at like really trying to get that softer side of her.
Hi, Michael. How are you?
Good man. How are you?
Doing good. You know, number one, I gotta say I adore the series. Bat Fam is right up my alley, just animated, delightful, and also kind of, you know, kind of going past the surface level, just burying some other themes and some depth in there while all this insanity is going on. And I feel like your character, Roz, is very much at the center of a lot of that mayhem. We're kind of used to seeing the, you know, kind of the villainous side of the character, and here we're introduced to Pap Pap. It's just a very very different dynamic. What was the character pretty much the final version when you signed on, or did it change
Yeah.
a lot?
Yeah. No, it's funny. We were just talking about this. I first became aware of Ra's al Ghul maybe 10 years ago when a buddy said to me, as an actor, he says, "You're going to play Ra's al Ghul one day." And I said, "I don't even know who that is," because he wasn't in the TV series in the 60s. And so when I got the packet on this, you know, it says that he's the grandfather, but he's also a retired supervillain, but never really wants to let go of the glory. You know, it's like anybody who is great at something, they don't want to, you know, forget about that. They want to keep talking about that even in their retirement age, right? So I don't know how old he is. I don't know, 500 years, you know, 600 years, I don't know, but he was, you know, the head of the League of Assassins, and he wants everyone to remember that. And he also wants his grandson to follow in his footsteps, as it were. And what worse than your grandson's father being actually a superhero? So there's this constant, you know, sparring with Batman, who he used to spar with, you know, in Gotham. And I love the family aspect of it because we've all got that old uncle or grandfather that tells you about their glory days, and you're like, really? But I did relate to that. I have an uncle like that. Yeah.
Amazing. Yes, and that's what makes it fun, right? Because we've never actually been able to see that side of the character in many ways, because there is
Right.
also a very like adoring you know, parental figure in a way of, you know, Damien, and he's learning from all of these people in this house.
Sure.
What can you kind of tease about Roz and Damien's relationship as the series goes on?
Well, I've only seen the 10 episodes. I don't know if you've seen them.
Mhm.
Have you seen all of them? You have.
Yes.
So I just think that, you know, I hope that Damien's character will follow in his grandfather's footsteps to be a supervillain, but he's already wearing the Batman suit. So I don't see that as actually happening, but you never know. You never know. I think that he is kind of jockeying for position as favorite grandfather, as it were, character, you know, between him and I want to say Arthur. Am I right? Arthur? No,
Man-Bat?
no.
Alfred.
Alfred. Alfred.
Alfred.
Thank you. And Alfred. I did know that. Don't think that I didn't know that. Alfred. I feel like they're kind of jockeying for position for, older Patter. You know, the older father figure. And what else? I think he's going to warm up to maybe the other kids in the house. It's very much like like a superhero Brady Bunch, as it were, which is everybody's got to come together, and it's the Brady Bunch meets the Super Friends. So everybody's got to work together, And sometimes he helps out unwillingly, but because he loves his grandson so much. That's really what happens.
Now, of course, over DC's doing so many things right now, and you were given the proclamation early, right, that you were going to play Roz
Yeah.
at some point. Would you want to take this version, especially this ghostly version, to live action at some point?
I would love to. And I have a feeling that when they were casting this, they wanted to get people who could play the characters live action, as it were. Do you know what I'm saying? So, I've seen, the other actors could definitely play the live action versions of their characters, all the way from, Batman to Alicia, and even James Cromwell. So who knows? It could happen. They've done a few of these kind of comedy animated shows into live action, and sometimes they do get the voice actors. But it would be great. I would love to.
Well, and look, speaking of you have an immense voice acting catalog.
Right.
But one of the ones that I actually wrote about recently, which is kind of a full circle moment, is Reboot.
Right.
Is Bob and Reboot, and I'm curious because we're seeing so many things kind of given revivals
Right.
and reboots, as it were, no pun intended.
Right.
What do you think the show kind of I feel like has this feeling of like it was ahead of its time as time has gone on. Would you want to see this show brought back in some form or fashion? And what would you think of that colliding with something like Bat Fam? Bob, what the hell would Bob think about that? About all those characters?
Bob would say game on. He'd say reboot, and he'd reboot into the Bat Family game. Yeah, that show was definitely ahead of its time. It was the first fully CGI animated series. I think it was 94 or 95 when it started. We predated Toy Story, and they did do a reboot of Reboot maybe in the
Mhm.
last 10 years. Um, they wouldn't tell me what it was, and they had me do an episode where they kind of revisit the old characters. And it really, a lot of the fans weren't happy with it in the new version, and I can understand why. I think the creators wanted to try to make it half live action and half CGI. I can understand that for budgetary reasons, et cetera. But I mean, more than ever, the internet and computers are ubiquitous. So it would be great today. And definitely video games are much more lifelike, and the CGI would look amazing for sure. And of course, I'd love to continue to voice Bob. Yeah.
Mike, thank you so much for taking the time to chat. I really appreciate it. Truly enjoyed the show. I'm a sucker for animation and fun and almost there's a whimsical vibe to Bat Fam that I really enjoy. So congrats on the success of that. Can't wait for people to see it.
Yeah.
Um, Kind of starting from there, I guess, I mean, obviously you had already done the previous project, so you already kind of had a sense of certain characters in the world, but when you were kind of moving into a full series, what were the things you wanted to lean into and what were the things you wanted to lean away from?
Oh, interesting. I'm going to actually answer that opposite. I don't know that there is much we wanted to lean away from. I think really we were chasing this idea of like, in the movie, as epic as it is, it really was kind of like a thin slice of this world. And we really wanted to get in there and dig around. We wanted to expand this world out because we had so much fun with the movie. Um, so we wanted to see more of Bruce and Damien's relationship. I think in order to do that, it made sense to bring more family members into the household to challenge them in different ways and to see, their characters grow and expand. What happens if Ra's al Ghul is in the house? And his actual biological grandfather, who runs the league or formerly ran the League of Shadows, what does that look like when he has a completely different view of how to raise a child than Bruce and Alfred, and how fun would it be if Manbat was in the mix and he lived in the Belfry, and so I think really where it came from is just the love of the movie and just wanting to see as much of it as we possibly can.
Well, look, you brought up two of the, most delightful chaos inducers in the series, which is Pap Pap and Man Bats. They are both fantastic, and it just I don't know what it is. Like Wayne Manor always feels so dark and moody, and even when Alfred's there, And they, I don't know, they just liven up the place. But for them, they're obviously two iconic villains, and Roz has the ties to Damien on a blood level, on a family level. But were there any other choices throughout? I mean, Batman has one of the biggest rogues galleries around, or did you always kind of know it was going to be those two as you were kind of making your way through the story and things?
Well, I think Raj for sure. We knew right away it had to be Raj. It sort of happened very organically and very quickly. It's like, well, who could we put in here, and what would it like? And it also came from like who creates the right kind of conflict that's also funny. Do you know what I mean? Like having Claire Selton come into the mix, she's got this angsty teenage energy, like that couples with Damon really well, especially since he really wants a big sister. He's always wanted like a big sibling, so he's just desperate for this relationship to work, and she's like over that. Or as we find out as the series goes, she actually really does adore what she affectionately calls the little dork. So I think again it was a very organic process in a lot of ways, and we kind of in a way knew what we needed to create conflict and humor, and then we just looked. I mean, Batman's world is huge, so it's like amazing pickings, So it's like you kind of get to pick the best of the litter.
Absolutely. I mean, it's one of those things like there's that running thing of like, man, there's another Batman project. And it's like, yeah, but Batman, there's so much to explore
Yeah.
just with Batman that it's kind of insane. You can have all those things and still explore something different. Which and look, I love the chippier. I'm a big fan of like, I mean, obviously I love the 60 series. I've loved, Brave and the Bold, some of those other takes where it's like the chippier Batman. I tend to really gravitate towards that. Right? He's still imposing. He's still huge
Yeah,
in
yeah,
the
yeah.
design. How do you walk that line between like it doesn't ever feel like not grounded either. So like
Yeah.
how do you walk that line with like making a happy Batman but also staying true to like Batman in general?
I think that it's weird because Batman's so well defined that it was basically Batman. We took all of his Batman energy, right? And instead of that energy focusing on defeating villains and doing detective work, which still is in the series, what does that energy look like as a dad, right? So he's still very methodical. He's still very pragmatic. He's still by the book, by the rules. That energy right away feels like Batman. And so it's like just taking that and then applying that to Bruce in a household where he's raising an 8-year-old and a 12-year-old and navigating two fawning grandparents over his son and a crazy scientist who lives in the Belfry, aka Manbat.
The Batmobile makes an appearance, obviously, and it looks sick. What
Yeah,
what was
thanks.
the obviously though? I mean, look, if you're talking about rogues, Batman's Batmobile selection is also just off the charts.
Yeah,
What was the inspiration there? Because I mean, it's got some like forever elements in it. It's sleek, but it's big, kind of like the not like absolute big, but like it's got some elements in there. What were you looking at?
well, the big came from this idea in the movie that we wanted Damien to be this little tiny peanut in this huge, huge world. Everything had to be ginormous next to him. So the big came from there, but predominantly. But there's no single answer. Our Bruce Wayne is like very much based on ourselves, me as a father, other people in the show as a father. So we just kind of look to our own life for clues or friends of ours' lives for clues. And, here's this guy who's raising an 8-year-old, right? And like, what would his midlife crisis Batmobile look like? It'd be like a huge, huge hot rod with a huge engine. Like in a way, his Batmobile is his own wish fulfillment, right? He's always had the cool, sleek, I'm Batman. And this time it's just like, I'm just going for it. Exhaust, huge pipes. Yeah.
Barely any seat, right? It's just like
Man,
it's
just all engine, It's like
oh
the
my
it's
gosh.
like the Lamborghini Batmobile,
Fantastic.
like a drag.
Midlife crisis Batmobile. It's just fantastic.
Yeah,
Yes.
100%.
Um,
And we
I
get
know I
to
gotta let you go.
Oh, okay. I was just gonna say we get to do that with this property, which one of the things that's fun with this property is we get to kind of live in both those worlds. What's cool and intimidating, but also what's funny, you know. It fits.
Well, I look, this was amazing. I can't thank you enough for the time. One of the things that I love about the series is obviously its animation and its and the designs, the character designs themselves, but the voice cast is fantastic. And you've cast a lot of people that, once you start seeing interviews with them, it's like, oh, I totally see the character in that person. They can totally play them in real life. Do you think this could translate well if it were to become a live action thing? If it were to become live action Batman, do you think you could pull that off? And would that be fun to do?
I think, yeah. Yeah, you could totally. I think some of the humor lives in these unusual, unorthodox designs, you know? So, but I think it could totally be pulled off in a live action. Why not? I think it'd be dope, especially with what CG can do today, you know? It's
Absolutely.
Man Bat, our Man Bat, and
Right? Yeah. And then you get to build the Batmobile.
hey, 100%. Yeah. I would want to build it for real though, because I'd want to at least drive it down the street once.
Yeah. And then like years from now, like someone
No,
just randomly owns it, in like Ohio.
exactly. Even though it'd probably knock all my teeth out because it would shake so hard. Um, it's interesting because I used to live in Burbank and Adam West, the '66 Batman, he had a Batmobile and the Batmobile from the series, and he would drive it around. Every once in a while, you'd be driving through, you just see it parked, at like Target or something. It's pretty cool.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for the time. I supremely appreciate it.
Yeah.
And all the success on the show. Can't wait to see what's next.
Thank you. Thanks so much.